You're on the road beyond. Welcome. I'm Todd Duplantis. Good to have you with us on this Monday night. We're live tonight, as we are most Monday nights. And you know what? This is somewhat of a special show. Not many podcasts make it through 7, 8, or even a dozen episodes. This is episode number 80. So happy 80th episode. Thanks for being here with us live on Facebook and YouTube. And of course, my contributor joining us tonight, my compadre, Matt Russell, is joining us live as well. Good to see you, Matt.
Hey, good to see you too, Todd. Seems like tonight we have everything from ghosts to strange lights in the sky.
We're going to cover all the bases tonight. We got a lot going on. And of course, I want to say that we have a few things we're going to talk about ghost related. We're going to take you down to Galveston so you can check out the Ghosts of Galveston.
Well, like I said, I'm excited to talk about that. Strange lights in the sky and ghosts. I mean, it's going to be an interesting night.
But first, we've got a few stories we're going to cover. One of them, I think, is a near asteroid miss.
Yes, but first, we want to talk about that asteroid miss. It's called a 2023 BU, and it's just 28 feet wide, but it did pass 22 miles north of Earth over the southern tip of South Africa. A near asteroid miss path, actually. You can see a picture of it there.
Yeah, not 2200. So not that close, but they consider, I think, anything within 100,000 miles a near miss to Earth. But now that's well within the orbit of satellites, but no damage was reported when it passed at the end of January. In fact, the mainstream media, I'm sure, didn't tell you a damn thing about it. Since it was so small, 28 feet wide, probably still could have caused a catastrophe. It would have probably burned up before impact, though. Maybe. We hope, at least, Matt.
Yeah, something much bigger, the Borisov comet, which was detected entering our solar system back in 2019. You're looking at the comet path, and the comet is much larger, as 40 miles across. So, but as it closest to Earth, it was 190 million miles away, so it barely missed us.
Yeah, I don't think they're worried that much about that one. Much closer to home over central Canada, this is something you may have not also heard of from the mainstream media. If you get the reference here, is because you're going to get things on this show that you're not going to get from the mainstream media. That's why we're here. But much closer to home, over central Canada, pilots reported seeing something very strange. The CTV reports those pilots saw strange lights in the skies, Matt.
Yeah, and our guy in Canada, Rich Thomas, saw them too. And you look at the pictures of what he captured. I don't know what to make of that.
I know. What the hell is it? Rich was able to capture something. In fact, we're going to talk more about this. Rich was going to join us tonight. He's a little under the weather. We'll have his full story about what he saw and captured in the next podcast. So make sure you join us for that. But let's get on with the main event tonight. A lot of big things happening here in Texas. One of the places in the U.S. that has a Mardi Gras, there's one, of course, in New Orleans, the world famous one in Brazil, but there's also one in Galveston. So tonight we're going to be talking about Galveston ghosts. In fact, the main event, Galveston Ghost Stories, with our friends from the historic Galveston Ghost Tours. It was in the year 1900, and Galveston was smashed in what was called the Big Storm. Many call it the Great Storm. It was a hurricane that set the standard for the future tropical storms tracked to do what they became of the National Weather Service. Now, the damage from this particular storm was catastrophic. Basically, the whole island was wiped out. It set a standard of destruction we have not seen yet again. We hope we never will. The destruction was almost total, but the death toll, while never exactly confirmed, may be as high as 12,000 people who perished in that one storm. We now strongly suspect that paranormal winds have left many of those souls from the massive death toll, laid the foundation for the reason Galveston is touted as one of the most haunted cities in America. With us now from Galveston to tell some of the serious ghost stories going on down there, we've got Annette Kinslow, also known as the Lady in Black, and Noelle Argubright. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So your first ghost story involves some poisoned children?
Yes, unfortunately, it does. There's a very famous, sad case. I do the Broadway Cemetery tours, and I call this family tombstone the hot spot, okay? Because if anything's going to happen in the cemetery, it usually happens at this place, this tombstone. So I want to set the stage for this, though. This is back in the late 1800s, okay? And let's talk about help for depressed people. There is no help for depressed people. There's not even a suicide hotline. The only thing there are insane asylums. And there's no help for women either, especially women.
Well,
So-
let me ask you a question, because back then, when somebody was, may have been going through depression or fits, like you said, they were just insane asylums. They would literally just throw them in a straitjacket and lock them away, because that was the easiest way to
That's
deal
it.
with that.
No
right?
therapy, no drugs.
Because they
Some
just
of our
didn't know.
most famous people, like Abraham Lincoln, were depressed.
Right.
Okay. For the same reason. So this young woman marries Mr. Alberti. He's coming in from Italy. She's a local gal, LZ is. And they have their first baby, a little boy, in 1877. Everything's good, and she's having more children. Remember, there's no Houston Astros to watch, no Monday Night Football, and no good birth control. So we're having a baby all the time back then. Okay.
Right.
So unfortunately, in 1884, when he is 7, he gets sick and dies. You have to remember there's no aspirin to bring down fever till the teens, the 19 teens, and no antibiotics until 1928. So he dies. The very next year, LZ's sister, who is 15, she dies. She gets sick and dies. Friends and family remark that she's not right in the head anymore after these 2 deaths, okay? She has 6 more children, one right after the other. And the last one in 1894 that she has is baby Caroline. When she's only 3 months old, she gets sick and dies. This flips her mind. So on cold winter nights, before we had central heat, your parents would have called you into the kitchen and given you a small glass of red wine to help make you sleepy and also keep you warm. I can't drink red wine during the summer. It makes me too hot. I have to switch to frozen margaritas. It's a sacrifice, but I do it anyway. Okay.
Yeah, good move there.
So one night, the dad, Mr. Alberti was a butcher, and he had a butcher shop right next door to his house. This is not unusual back then. And he has to go after dinner to clean up. He had a busy day. So he's got to wash down his counters, all his knives, everything. And halfway through, he goes next door to get a hot cup of tea or coffee and talks to his 10-year-old daughter, Ella. Ella says, "Dad, Mom is putting something in our wine." He goes, quit lying, or else I'll have to spank you. He proceeds to go back to his shop. He's cleaning away, but just a very few minutes later, he hears all this screaming and crying. Of course, he runs back next door to his house, and to his horror, 4 of his children are dead. She has put arsenic in their wine, which is rat poison. And you can buy that over the counter, just like you still can today. She thinks they would be better off dead than trying to live. You have to remember, death surrounded those people all the time.
Yeah.
It was a common occurrence.
Right.
And you don't know how, even today, you're going to deal with death until somebody close to you dies. And especially the death of a child would be, to me, horrendous. Now, there's an older daughter that has drunk the wine with arsenic. She's 12 years old, but she is still breathing. She has not died. She's passed out. He calls in 1894. We have telephones in Galveston. We're one of the first cities in Texas to have telephones. He calls his family doctor, who doesn't live that far. He comes racing over in his horse and buggy. He runs into the house. He takes the young girl and puts her in the buggy and races her over to St. Mary's Hospital. They give her Ipecac. She throws up the poison and she lives. Now, the police come and arrest her that night, but they have no jail cells for women. So they lock her in her second-story bedroom. But the next day, they come and get her again and take her to the San Antonio Insane Asylum. There they lock her up for 4 years with no therapy, no drugs, nothing. Now, remember, these places are horrible places. They are filthy. They mistreat the patients, and they don't even get enough to eat, okay? But 4 years later, they call her husband. She's fine. We're going to bring her back home. No way.
Yeah, bad idea.
But bad idea. She is not fine. The day after she gets home, she drinks red wine with arsenic in it. Now, almost every time I take people over there, we at least get ORDs, okay? But she has made herself known to myself and tours. Yes, the photo on the screen, those are, I believe, some of her children, okay? Coming back. That whole area is very active. But she has also told my group and I that she is sorry for what she did.
Right.
And she cannot cross over. She's an active ghost there because she feels like she does not deserve to. But she has touched me, touched members of my tour group. And also sometimes, instead of talking to all of us, she'll whisper in one or two people's ears that she is sorry for what she did. Okay?
And
I've seen her one time.
Well, that's what I was going to get to right now, because I want to ask you a question, and Matt, maybe you can chime in on this as well.
Sure.
Have either you or Noelle seen what you believe to be an apparition or a ghost? If you have, what did it look like to you? Because I'm interested. I have, and so
I have at least 3 of them.
Did it look like an apparition, a real person? Because what I saw looked like a real person.
Yes, she looked like a real person. It wasn't like color, okay?
Yeah.
And she was somewhat transparent, but you could tell that she was dressed from the 1800s. Her hair was pinned up on top of the head like they used to.
Right.
And all she was doing is looking at the family tombstone, okay?
Did you get any feelings or sensations?
Sorrow. Incredible sorrow, okay?
A lot too.
Heavy.
And a couple people in the group, I had about 12 people that night, saw her. They decided they weren't going to stay for the rest of the tour. They left in a big hurry. Okay. Now, yes.
Noelle, have you seen one?
Oh, well, we capture like evidence on my tours all the time. I have felt a lot of things. I witnessed many things like paintings like flying off the wall in places here in Galveston, things just getting knocked off. So I haven't seen an actual apparition with my own eyes, but I have definitely experienced things, and we have definitely captured evidence on photograph and video for sure.
Yeah.
So there seems to be a lot of ghost stories in Galveston. I mean, it looks like the next ghost story involves the big storm.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
It does involve the big storm. I've seen this nun 3 times before I captured her image finally on a photograph.
As you're getting started, I want to tell people if you stick around, you're going to see some incredible pictures, because you guys sent them some really incredible pictures of what you're talking about right now.
Yes. So I finally got her image. Now, this freaks a lot of people out when I explain about the nun, but she is from an orphanage on Galveston Island, right where our Walmart is on the seawall. Now, at this time in 1900, that's it right there. There were 10 nuns and about 93 children. Now, this was outside the city limits of Galveston. The only thing between this wooden orphanage, 2-story building, and the ocean were some sand dunes, okay? So when the water starts coming in, the nuns did what I would have done they take all the children up into the attic. On the way up, they grab some clothesline because they have small orphans, 4 or 5 years old. Now, in those days, remember, there is no air conditioning. So you have windows in your attic because when the hot air comes into the building, you want it to go out and dissipate. This allows some of the cool air to come in the windows below. Okay. It's kind of, it's not air conditioning, but it's better than nothing.
Right.
So the nuns take all the children up into the attic. They start tying so many children to each of the 10 nuns. They kind of divide them out. But before they can get everybody tied up, there are 3 boys left, 8, 9, and 11 years old. A huge wave comes and knocks that building down completely. The 3 boys are pushed through a window into a tree where they hang on for a night of terror. There are no lights on during this hurricane. The wind is at least 145 miles an hour. We're not quite sure. So when you have wind that high, it's going to make sounds like a banshee or a witch. Okay. And they're getting a face full of salt water every few seconds. Okay. So, but they hang on and they're rescued. The next day, after the hurricane has passed, remember it came onto the island at 8 p.m., technically. People were out in their boats looking for survivors. 2 men in a boat come across these 3 boys and they are rescued. But all the 10 nuns and all 90 children are drowned. Now those children are still there at that Walmart. Okay. I have 2 grandsons. I go there quite a bit. I've seen toys move on the shelves. It looks like they're moving by themselves, but they are not. I've seen an old-fashioned scooter, not the electric kind, but the kind you have to push with your foot, go down an aisle. But it looks like nobody's on it. Okay.
And I know I've heard these stories about that particular Walmart. I know exactly where you're talking about. But you have some incredible pictures that were taken around tombstones. And if we can show some of those real briefly, you can tell us, because
that's the nun right there in the background.
You can't deny it. You can see a nun in these pictures. And this is not someone that was with your tour group. This is the pictures that were taken, correct?
Correct. And other people in my tour group got this photo as well. I believe she is feeling bad and guilty for losing so many of the children. But I have told her, try to tell her spirit that this was beyond their control. Okay. There was nothing they could have done beyond what they did because there were no other people or buildings out there. Okay.
Well, this also inspired them to change dramatically the face of Galveston because they built the seawall, to make sure this tragedy is never going to happen again, and it totally reformed the way Galveston, which still stands today, has dealt with hurricanes since then. Let me ask you this, because something we can't show you here are the spooky feelings your guests on these tours. You told us a little while ago, Annette, about a few guests that saw the apparition that you were able to see, and they left the tour. So I imagine, it can freak people out. In my case, it was comforting because it was a lost person. My late wife appeared to me. But many people may not feel comforted. It scares the hell out of them.
Yes, it does scare some people. And I try to explain to them to calm down. Most of these spirits are not going to hurt you as long as you are respectful. Okay. Now, sometimes I get teenagers on my tour. Okay. They want to walk on the graves. They want to climb on the tombstones. I don't allow that.
Right.
I ask them very nicely not to do that because the spirits know we are there. They're very conscious and they do not want to be disrespected like that at all. Okay.
Matt, you,
well, I mean, there's just as we're going through this tour here, there's another spooky story about a mausoleum.
Yes, the J.P. Davy Mausoleum. This is very active. It's the largest mausoleum in the 7 cemeteries there. Okay, it's not just one. You had to be very wealthy to build a very large mausoleum like this. And as you can see, it looks like a little chapel. Okay. It was designed by an architect, then built by a builder. Okay. Now you can't really see, but those columns in the front are pink granite. Okay. You had to be very wealthy to get that installed. And all the granite was carved by hand. No mechanism back then, no modern machinery. Okay. So I believe I've talked to the family. I've seen them in there. It's still being taken care of. Number one, that was raised all 3 times that they raised the level of the cemeteries, 12 feet of dirt each time. And it was not cheap. Okay. Now, they think there's between at least a dozen people buried in there. We've seen a woman's face. There's a window at the very back. Yes, right there. If you look to the left, you can see a woman's face. Okay. Now, guess what, guys? I don't know how to Photoshop. Okay. I have not joined the 21st century, so that's not Photoshopped. Okay. And also, you can see an orb above her head. Orbs or spirits. You see, it takes a tremendous amount of energy just to do that, to show your face. Sometimes they can't, but they can show themselves as orbs. Okay. Now, we have seen other people, a little boy smiling at us, and I've seen spirits walk across that mausoleum inside that window. The window's on the back. It's very narrow. Okay. But almost every night I do a tour, when I take people over there, they're going to catch something in that window, at least orbs.
You know, one thing we didn't cover on tonight's episode, but there was an incarnation of this show about 20 years ago that I did a pilot for television called The Road Beyond. And our first episode was focused in Galveston. But what we did cover was the old trolley station. At that time, it was turned in, there was a restaurant there. I can't remember the name of it, but there was a restaurant in that area. And we picked up a lot of activity in there. In fact, we brought, as you know, Dash Beardsley was one of the guests on our shows, you know, who was very well versed in the ghost tours of Galveston. And we had a lot of activity going on, but it was all related to the Civil War. Have you found anything along those lines in your tours as well?
Yes, there is a building just a couple of doors down from the trolley station. Okay, it's a very old building. It was a Civil War hospital in the old days.
That's exactly where I was going. Yes, exactly.
Yes. And we've gotten orbs. And I have heard stories of people seeing wounded Civil War soldiers sitting on the ground outside, waiting because they would have gone in. And the operations would have been during the day because that's when they have the very most light. Now, I would say 85% of these operations were amputations. They did not have the tools, the knowledge, or the technology to put bone back together. And the mini ball was very destructive because it just wouldn't go into you. It would shatter bone. Okay. So that's what they did. They did more amputations. Now, I believe, my feeling is there are many spirits in that building. Okay. Because remember, no antibiotic. That's why we lost so many men during the American Civil War. Now, when the Confederates held the island, mostly that was a Confederate hospital, but Union men too. When the Union held the island, it was mostly run by Union surgeons. Okay. So,
and that's exactly what, you know, we had a psychic that worked with us when we were shooting the show, and had an experience inside of the particular building you're talking about, where she saw a scene where basically you had a soldier that was wounded. They were going to amputate his leg. He got up, freaked out, grabbed the knife, and went after her. And she thought it was an impression that was being played over and over again, which actually happened in that building. So it kind of goes along the line.
Yes. Because there's kind of two kinds of hauntings. The one where they're looking you in the eye, they're trying to communicate with you, or they do communicate with you.
Right.
The other kind is almost like a film that's imprinted on the brick or stone of the building.
And it plays
Okay.
over and over again.
Yes, when things are right, it will play over and over again.
Annette, Noel, we appreciate you joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
We've got a less than a minute and a half left in the show. Matt, real quickly, take a look at these pictures. Do you see a ghost on the right? Take a look at one of these pictures here. And as we delve into it, you're going to see more of this ghost. And the answer to that is on next week's episode of The Road Beyond. If you want to go on tours, you can log into the Historic Galveston Ghost Tours website. We will have their website in our social media post. And tomorrow we're going to dig into, or next week rather, we're going to dig into more in this, Matt.
Looking forward to it, Todd. Ladies, thank you for your time. This is awesome.
You're welcome.
Incredible stories. We look forward to hearing more of them. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night.
And Matt, we've got a lot to talk about next week. More ghosts, because next week is Fat Tuesday, and we're going to line it up with Ghosts of Galveston. All that and more coming up next week on The Road Beyond. Matt, thanks for being here tonight.
Todd, it was an honor. I appreciate it. We will see you next week to talk about where the spirits are flowing, the spirits are going for Fat Tuesday, it seems like.
That's right. Thanks, folks. We'll see you live right here, 7 p.m. for the Road Beyond podcast.